Hey guys, when was the last time you played Call of Duty?
What the fucking use, huh? Tell me what the fucking use, huh? Tell me what the fucking use is. What the fucking use?
These recent ones haven't been great, including the newest one, Modern Warfare 3, being a bit of a disaster. But with Black Ops 6 on the horizon, I have another case of copium to huff. These games both have something in common though. They have a zombies mode. In fact, all these games have a zombies mode in them. And in order to get you up to speed on Black Ops 6 zombies mode, actually, I'm gonna have to do this because this story, and this story are all different. This game has two different stories, but then after this one was complete, the other one got dropped. And they connected that story to what's going on right now. However, I'm going to be talking about the main storyline of the Call of Duty Zombies franchise called the Aether story. But before we start that, I would like to give some background info about the creation of the Zombies mode during the development of the Call of Duty game. It's 2007. Treyarch is working on the new Call of Duty at the time, Call of Duty World at War. It's a gritty take on World War II, and it's super serious and brutal with large caliber machine guns that take up arms and flamethrowers that cook your enemies while they scream for relief. But one of the developers noticed that the animation of being on fire kinda looks like a zombie, and the screams recorded also kinda sound like zombies. So they get to work on a little secret project where they threw together some used assets from the campaign and multiplayer and made a funny little horde mode that they would play in between work hours. After a while, it dawned on them that they were using company assets for their own private things, so they decided to make a little presentation for their publisher, Activision, to have a look at their little project. This isn't really what we were looking for in our war game. Trust me, you guys gotta sit down and play it yourself. Alright, we'll give it a go. This game is fun. And at this time, we still make fun games. Alright, we'll allow it. But put it in the background as a little Easter egg to find or something. And that's when they made it an unlockable mode for finishing the campaign. People start finding it and it becomes an instant classic.
Hey guys, did you know that when you finish the game, you get sent to hell?
OMG guys, I made it to round 12. That's like a world record. If you spin 2 times teabag and throw a grenade into the mystery box, you'll get a ray gun every time. A community was starting to form, filled with people who were trying to get higher rounds than they had previously, and Treyarch decided to include another zombies map in their first DLC pack that followed that year in March. However, a certain thing was starting to come around. This zombie kinda sounds like it's saying Sam when it slaps me. Sam! I wonder if that means anything. The developers were very close in the community and they started to think of a narrative. They put this guy, Jimmy Zielinski, who was the lead animator, into the role of creative director for the zombie series. The story is mostly told through radios and ciphers hidden throughout the maps, but there are also Easter egg quests. That's when you go on YouTube and look up the Mr. Waffles tutorial and you do a Destiny raid basically. They are completely optional, but it gives you something to do other than just surviving the rounds, and the community loves them, and personally, they're my favorite part of zombies. Zielinski is the creative director for these games right here, and later on he is replaced by another guy named Jason Blundell during this game, and then toward the rest of them. Jimmy leaves after making this map, but people create rumors that he was fired or let go after the feedback from Transit and Die Rise because nobody liked those maps. Also, he kind of writes himself into a certain narrative point that we'll learn about later, and it was kind of hard to get out of that. It's not really his fault though, he thought one of the games was going to be the last one. But remember, these are just rumors, nothing has been confirmed. The only thing that was said was Jimmy Zielinski left his position, and Jason Blundell became the new one. So, yeah, that That's just it about that. But when Blundell takes over, he makes the zombie story go crazy, like out the wazoo. So much so that this video exists. Mine's not gonna be that long, but yeah, you can see how things kind of got a little out of whack. I'm gonna tell the story in sequential order with some chronological stuff thrown in there for context, because when you do it this way, it's pretty fun. Now, without further ado, this is the Call of Duty Zombies Aether storyline. It all starts with the Blue Rock from outer space. This is Element 115, and this is German scientist Ludwig Maxis. He wants to research Element 115 and create a organization to do that. It's an international organization, and it's called Group 935, which their mission statement is to better the human condition. Now, the events of this take place around World War II, with the official dates of the creation of Group 935 being May 10th, 1931. The first established facility was created in Breslau, Germany, which is actually Wrocław, Poland now. But this is the Der Ries facility. Just for the record, most of the places are referred to by their in-world name rather than the map name that we see when we're selecting the map to play. The Der Ries facility is easy though, because that's just what it's called. Anyway, Maxis invites another German scientist into Group 935, Edward Richtofen, our sus, crazy, enigmatic Nazi scientist.
I need to find some ammunition.
He's also part of the Illuminati. Sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not. Just think of it like it's a quirky thing on his Tinder profile. You know, right under his doctorate and how he loves long, hard. So Richtofen at this point in the story is a normal dude. He's a little bit of a sociopath, but he's not crazy yet. He's working with another scientist named Dr. Schuster on something that they call the matter transference device. It's a teleporter, but it's powered with Element 115. It fails a lot, but something interesting happens. While testing with the corpse as a subject, the dead body becomes reanimated. Maxis finds this extremely interesting and starts thinking, it's zombie time. Now, how the hell does this improve the human condition? He puts Richtofen on a team that will search how to make the zombies subservient. However, he's not really interested in doing that, so he and Dr. Schuster still continue to work on the teleportation project. On December 4th, 1939, Richtofen and Schuster successfully teleport something. It was a walnut, but hey, you know, big for them. That's pretty crazy. So they go get Maxis to show him what they just did, and he isn't too pleased. You moved a fucking walnut? Yeah. You guys are idiots. I told you to work on the zombie army. Dude, we literally just made a huge breakthrough in science. None of that matters now because we need an army. You see, I'm gonna tell you right now. Science is expensive, and seeing as our current location is right here, I've decided to work with the Nazis. What? This is an international organization. Everybody's gonna leave. We need bread. Now keep working on the fucking army. The painter guy really needs that right now. It's kind of funny how Richtofen is pretty against working with the Nazis when he later becomes a psychopath. But hey, he might be crazy, but at least he has standards. Now both of them are pretty pissed off, but they decide to keep working on the teleportation experiments in secret. And 1 month later, Richtofen decides to volunteer himself as a test subject for the teleportation. The receiving end is behind a brick wall, and due to the teleporter's unpredictable nature, he is teleported to the moon and finds this pyramid thing, later known as the MPD, Moon Pyramid Device. Now, how was he able to breathe on the moon? Maybe the room was built a certain way, but I don't know, fucking plot. Anyway, he touches the pyramid and it zaps him. With the zap, he becomes corrupted and starts hearing voices in his head. And now, this is where Richtofen becomes the fucking loon that we all know. In a moment's time, he is then teleported from the moon to a jungle in the Himalayas and gets chased out by the natives there. However, he actually helps the natives by introducing them to hydropower and modern mining technology for the time. It's the 1940s. The local tribe there reveres him as a god, but he uses that to his advantage. You see, he finds that there's a huge deposit of 115 in their backyard and has the people mine it for him. Because they come into contact with 115, they go crazy and become zombies, but he actually leaves before all that stuff happens, and he returns to the Derice facility in like a month. I don't know how he got from here to here in a month's time during a war, but you're just gonna have to give the story the benefit of the doubt. It's kind of wacky with the dates. He tells Schuster to get in the teleporter and shows him the MPD on the moon. He then starts building a Group 935 facility on the moon. This becomes Griffith Station, and it's completed in 2 years. Now that's German engineering. Back in the 1940s, the Nazis are being a little stingy with their money, and Maxis tells his assistant Sophia to write a letter to the Reichstag that they are working on the products that they want, like the zombie army and mass producing these wonder weapons, but they gotta cut them some slack and they need more funds and more 115 to research with. They agree, and in fact, they give him some more facilities to work with. A repurposed theater and an asylum both in Berlin, a base in Siberia near the Tunguska River, a medieval castle in Austria, and they even convinced the Japanese to give up one of their facilities. Their own group that studies 115 called Division 9. I forgot to talk about wonder weapons, but they're just guns that use 115, like the ray gun and the thunder gun. They're just the cool ones that you get from the box, you know. They're there so the maps are fun. They're not really important to the story, but anyway. Group 935 is having a wonderful time during this period. Richthofen starts working on his wonder weapon, the Wunderwaffe DG2, and the Germans collect something crazy from Africa, the pack punch machine. Wink, wink. And they have plans to replicate that, baby.
That's the thing that upgrades your gun.
935 also makes these drinks infused with 115 called Perco-Colas. That's where you get the Juggernaut, Quick Revive, Stamina Up, you know, things like that. Although they didn't make Stamina Up, but that's later. Now, even though Group 935 is going through this fantastic moment, people are starting to realize that Maxis is kind of a dick. And they don't like him very much, especially after the whole Nazi thing. Richthofen finds out about the people who don't like Maxis, and he asks them to help him and join him on the moon at Griffith Station. And I mean, I'm not gonna lie, even if I didn't like Maxis and Richthofen was like, hey, help me on my lab at the moon, like, that's pretty lit, so I would help anyway. So, Griffith Station is officially complete on February 1st, 1942, and Richthofen announces that he's going to put another scientist in charge of Griffith Station named Dr. Groff, and he gives him the task to find out how the MPD works and how to power it up, and overall to just make sure the bases run well. Also, Maxis has no knowledge of Griffith Station at all, like, while it's running. Now, Maxis has a daughter who he brings along to the facility so that way he can watch over her because the mother's dead and he wants to keep her close. But he's not a very good father. He doesn't even follow that for very long. Anyway, his daughter's name is Samantha and she's like 10. She's very young, you know. He gives her a dog because he's an absentee parent, but you know, kids like dogs. Dogs are cool. Her name is Fluffy and she is gonna have puppies. That's an important detail, guys, I swear. Maxis then leaves the Derice facility to go to the theater facility, which they'll call the Kino facility. He doesn't bring Samantha with him. Instead, he leaves him with Richthofen, which is actually his #1 hater and also now a schizophrenic. But he doesn't know that, so you cut him some slack. Richthofen ends up testing on Samantha. We don't really know what he does, but he just like fucks with her. Now, the reason Maxis goes to the Kino facility is because the experiments that they're doing there are trying to make the zombies subservient and able to follow orders. So there's a very specific test subject known as 2-6 that is looking very promising. It's docile, it obeys commands, but during a test, one of the handlers actually ends up getting attacked by it, and they have to kill 2-6. But they also killed the handler as well. Now, Sophia was also there during the test, and she also got attacked by 2-6, but she survives. She tries to keep it a secret, but she's clearly affected by the zombie. She has a fever, she's sweating everywhere, and people are starting to make rumors. The rumors end up getting to Maxis, and he ends up developing a plan. Secret plan. He calls her into his office to have a confrontation about the rumors, and he gives her some tea. But the tea is actually poisoned, and when she drinks it, she drops to the floor and is incapacitated. He then builds her into a machine that he puts her brain inside, and later she wakes up. The machine is called the Strategic Operations Planning Heuristics Intelligence Analyzer, or Sophia, and it has her consciousness. Alright. Basically made Karen from fucking SpongeBob. Meanwhile, on the moon, Groff and Schuster are working on their science stuff when a rat is found scurrying around the facility, and they kill it. But when they kill it, it's conveniently next to the MPD, and the rat's life force energy physically leaves its body and starts filling up the canisters attached to the MPD. Kind of like its soul, you know? They look at each other like, yeah, we're about to commit massive human rights violations. And they tell Richtofen what happened, and he sends them soldiers and other scientists that they will use to sacrifice and fill up the machine. I don't see why they just didn't use more rats. Maybe human juice is better, or maybe they're huge animal violence activists, but then who fucking knows. Since this is an international organization, the OSS has already sent in spies to report on what the group is doing. The spies that they send are Harvey Yena and Sergeant Peter McCain. Yena works in Siberia, and Peter works in the asylum facility. Years pass, and now it's 1945. If you know history, this is the year where World War II starts to wrap up. But some of the dates seem a little strange to be happening when they do, but please just go with the flow. My excuse is just that some key moments happen in this universe later, but I'll address them when I get to it. On June 4th, a plane carrying Marines crashes into some German supply trucks carrying 115 and zombies that are being shipped to the other 935 facilities. There are 4 survivors of the plane crash, and they run to safety in an abandoned airfield and barricade themselves in the building. This is Nacht und Toten.
Alright, so we found the glitch in Nacht und Toten. All the zombies are just all right in one corner. Right there. Oh crap! Shit!
The Marines fight their damnedest and hold out for as long as they can, but eventually they succumb to the zombies. Unlucky. In July, Richtofen goes to the facility in Siberia to test on live subjects. How fun. But he is also tasked with figuring out how to use 115 to turn people into super soldiers. It's kind of funny because they mentioned that the super soldiers were a top priority on the Chancellor's list of things he wanted to get done. However, those who know history know that the famous Chancellor did this back in April. So who are they referring to? Karl Dönitz in custody? Anyway, Richtofen also has some other plans in his back pocket. He brings with him some notes from a guy who made the Pack-a-Punch machine, which talk about things like the Vril vessel and the elemental shard. There's also another thing called the Vril device that he found back on the moon when they completed Griffith Station, but he takes it with him to Siberia. The Pack-a-Punch guy has already made the Vril vessel, and he has that with him as well. Here's the fun part. He's gifted 3 human test subjects to play with, and their names are Nikolai Belensky, Takio Misaki, and Pablo Marinis? Let me explain. Nikolai is the drunk Russian guy that everybody likes to play. He has a billion wives, and he was captured during the Battle of Stalingrad. Takio is the stereotypical Japanese guy who talks about honor and the emperor. He was actually a very loyal and effective soldier. He would take on all the personal missions for the emperor, but I guess the emperor actually doesn't like him. Story-wise, they say this is because he becomes jealous of Takio because he's so brave and he gets things done, but he's the emperor. It's just a thing that I find weird, but hey. Anyway, the Emperor sends Takio on a task to see what Division 9 is up to. Takio witnesses their experiments and writes him a letter. Bro, this is so fucked up. Emperor, Google Unit 731. You gotta shut this down. But the Emperor tells him to relinquish himself to Division 9 and become a test subject. Since he always follows orders, he complies and turns himself in. Takio is then transferred to Group 935 and here he is now. Pablo Marinis was a spy for Mexico that they caught at the facility in Austria, but that's all we really know about him. During the first 115 test, Pablo is the most responsive to them. He has dreams about being in a crazy medieval war against these gross creatures and scribbles everything around his holding cell. Oh yeah, it's that good 115 shit, man. Yina also works with Richtofen on these experiments, and one in particular was how to unlock the barrier to the human mind. Richtofen believes that this barrier could be in the spleen, and he operates on Pablo, which ends up killing him. Whether or not Yina sabotaged it is up in the air, but in the recordings, it sounds like he dropped it on the floor. Richtofen doesn't like Yina because he's an American, but he's also starting to believe that he's a spy. Luckily for Richtofen, he is provided with a replacement test subject, VenandPsy. There we go. You see, while working at the asylum facility, Peter McCain was reporting that Group 935 was losing control of their experiments, and his OSS handler, Cornelius Purnell, creates a task force to get him out of there. This includes 4 Marines named Smokey, John Banana, Paxton Gunner Ridge, and the previously mentioned VenandPsy. Peter McCain ends up getting found out that he's a spy and is detained by Group 935. However, an outbreak happens on September 3rd, and during the chaos, Peter escapes from the facility. Sadly, the task force arrives 3 days too late, and it's crawling with zombies. This is Verrucht.
Sounds like in Germany. Forces of it, while it's in blue, I will dedicate my life to the fear around you. I could. And this cocaine's really strong today.
Yeah,
You kill me with a trap.
The brave Marines fight for as long as they can, but the opposition was too great for them. Smokey and Banana end up dying to the zombies. Dempsey is captured by Group 935, but Paxton actually ends up escaping by himself. Then Amazon Prime express delivery him to Siberia because Dempsey somehow gets from Germany from Siberia on the 17th, and that's 10 days. But anyway, Richtofen continues his 115 experiments on them, and Samantha too. That one's just for the memes. That's also why they act super stereotypical to their nationality. The 115 made them crazy. But that's all the experiments really did. Richtofen then sees this as an opportunity to do some personal experiments. I'm just gonna say his name. Jebediah Brown is the Pack-a-Punch guy. But I won't reveal much about him till later. Richtofen tries out something in Jebediah's notes, creating something called the Elemental Shard. His note said that if you bind 4 souls to a piece of 115, it will create an exceptionally powerful item. So Richtofen uses the real device to extract the essence of the 3 test subjects and his own soul, because he just happened to be in the room, and it creates a clear glass looking piece of element 115. I hope this doesn't have monumental consequences in the universe. But Yina snitches on Richtofen. Not only because he's trying to fit into Group 935, but also because Richtofen is suspicious himself. Yina tells him that Maxis has stopped the production of the Wunderwaffe DG2 and he is demanding that he comes back to Deriz so that he can keep an eye on him. Now, if you thought that Richtofen already disliked Maxis, he absolutely hates him now. But he's got a plan. He always has a plan.
Richtofen returns to Deriz with the test subjects and continues working on experiments with Maxis like nothing is wrong. But he's just waiting for a message from a certain someone. It's go time. On October 13th, the day after he received the message, Maxis and Richtofen are testing the teleporters, but nothing's working. Richtofen decides to use Samantha's dog Fluffy as a test subject, and swoop, she disappears. While Maxis is stating that the test was a failure, a demonic-looking dog appears out of nowhere. What happened was Fluffy was teleported to a place called the Aether, and now her unborn children are being sent out as terrifying creatures called hellhounds.
Hey, I thought Samantha got the dog years ago, so why is it still pregnant?
You better shut your fucking mouth.
To make matters worse, Samantha comes into the testing room and freaks out, obviously, because her dad just turned her dog into a spawn of Satan. So then she gets into the teleporting chamber to try to reason with it. She's like 12, bro. Give her a pass. Maxis chases after Samantha to protect her from the dog, but then Richtofen closes the door behind them. They are locked in. It's time to enact his plan. Richtofen then uses the teleporter to send them off to wherever the wind takes them. The teleporter, for the most part, has been a failure, so it was more of an attempt to kill the both of them, but I'm sure he wouldn't have cared if it sent them to somewhere that was unfavorable too. However, this sends Maxis to somewhere just known as the Crazy Place, and it sends Samantha to Griffith Station. She gets freaked out by all the guards and scientists and tries to escape, but then she runs inside the MPD and locks herself in there. Well, shit, says Dr. Groffenschuster. We gotta call Richtofen to tell him what just happened. Get in contact with him and tell him what was up. Bring Maxis to the facility? Why would we do that? You were supposed to get rid of him in the first place. Look, we need the pyramid for the plan, but the only way the kid is gonna get out of there is if Maxis coaxes her out. We don't even know where he is right now. How do you expect us to— Hey, just get it done! Also, there's like a spooky dog now, so be cautious of that. Bye-bye! What a prick. This seems like a predicament, but Groff has a setting on the moon teleporter where they could find someone anywhere in space as long as they have the DNA of the subject. So he goes beep boop boop, and he brings Maxis back from the Crazy Place to Griffith Station. Maxis is obviously pissed that he finds out there's a place that he didn't even know existed, but there's no time for that now. Groff tells them the situation, and he's escorted to the pyramid to try to get Samantha out of the pyramid, which he does, but then, good girl, Samantha. Now, can you kill everyone here? That would be great. And he shoots himself right in front of her. Why did they allow him to even have a gun? But as we know, the pyramid corrupts those who interact with it, and she was in there for a while. So she now has control over the zombies and rises them up from the ground and devastates the whole facility. With her newfound powers and the vengeance that she gets from Maxis, she unleashes hordes of zombies on every Group 9-3 facility, hoping to destroy the organization as per her father's wishes. Especially the root of all their problems, Richtofen. The next day, Richtofen is chilling in Deriz, probably yelling at squirrels or whatever, when suddenly, alarms go off, the base is being attacked. Scheisse! He runs to the test subjects and frees them. Because of the 115 testing and being on ice for so long, they have no recollection of who Richtofen is or what they have been through. They just see the zombies and a guy who's like, hey, we gotta leave, I got a plan, and they escape with him. Now, do you guys remember Peter McCain? Well, after escaping from Verrückt, he gets back in contact with Purnell, and he tells Peter to rendezvous at the Rising Sun facility. That's the one that Division 9 gave to Group 935. And they'll pick him up there. So he gets on a plane and parachutes toward the facility, but he gets caught in a temporal rift. Probably due to all the shenanigans from Samantha and the teleportation of the gang coming there, and he becomes unconscious, and he gets spat back out, but his parachute still went out. However, the parachute gets caught on the roof of a building, and he is hung by it and dies. He also lost his arm while falling down. The gang arrives shortly after, and this is Shinonuma. Richtofen came here to pick up his diary. And he gets to reading. He then develops a plan to defeat Samantha, but he doesn't tell the others about it. He's quirky like that. Also, the others probably wouldn't follow this man if they knew what he was trying to do. He's also, schizophrenic. Yeah. Teleports him back to Deriz and hopes to use the teleporter there to get back to the moon. And now this is when Deriz happens.
I'm on Deriz. I'm on Deriz. Everybody look at me cause I'm pissing on a zombie. I'm on Deriz. I'm on Deriz. Take a good hard look at the motherfucking map.
You realize that he sent Samantha there from here, so why can't he also go there himself? But as they were teleporting, Dempsey shoots the Wonder Wasp at the same time and it supercharges the teleporter, sending them 18 years into the future. He also drops his diary on the floor of the platform. The teleportation takes them to the Kino facility. Now this is Kino der Toten. Dunkov. The gang has to find a way out of the facility. Oh wait, what's this thing? It's a lunar lander. What's a lunar lander? It's this thing, and it flies around. Well, that was definitely convenient, and it takes them to an interesting place that's actually not a Group 935 facility. What? This is the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, or Ascension.
Security personnel on high alert. Holy undead space monkeys!
This is November 9th, 1963, and a lot has happened since the end of World War II. For example, Group 935 disbanded due to all the attacks, having no leader, and their main supporter, Nazi Germany, being defeated. The research ended up being part of the spoils and taken by both the US and the Soviet Union. The Soviets occupied the Deriz facility because it's on the eastern side, and they recovered Richtofen's diary. Now the Russians want to get involved with 115, and they create a research division known as Ascension Group. One of the founding members is our favorite rat, Harvey Yena, who is using his position to give the US intel about what the Soviets are up to and their research with 115. Some other key members are Anton Gersh and another guy named Yuri Zavoysky. Gersh and Yena are pretty buddy-buddy and work on experiments together, like getting monkeys ready for space travel. I wonder why their eyes are red. Gersh works on something called Project Mercury along with Yuri, but over the years, Yuri ends up not being a chill dude to hang around with. He has anger issues and is overall just kind of a dickhead to his fellow scientists. So Gersh removes him from Project Mercury and transfers him to work on the rockets. You know, the ones that they send to space. Yuri is pissed, and he decides that he's still gonna work on Project Mercury, but on his own time. He starts studying Richtofen's diary, but it turns out that it's not a very ideal thing to do. His corruption is plastered in his notes, and it's as contagious as a COVID patient on an airplane. So now Yuri starts going crazy and is contacted by Samantha. She sees what Project Mercury is, and she considers that it could be extremely useful to her. so she gets Yuri to follow her commands and finish what he is working on. He finishes making something called the Gersh device, which is essentially a deployable black hole, and Samantha proceeds to give Yuri his final instructions. Yuri calls Gersh to show him what he's been working on, and this is how it goes. Yuri, you aren't even supposed to be here. What do you want to show me? Well, you see, I was finishing making something for Project Mercury. Check it out. Well, this is interesting.
Now you get him too.
Wait, what? And the Gersh device sends Yuri on a personal journey. Meanwhile, Gersh's body gets destroyed, but is trapped inside the Casimir mechanism. Now we can get back to the gang. Gersh tells them that they need to repair the Casimir mechanism, which is to do some random stuff like mess with his computer and shoot this glowing ball. After they blast the thing, it releases Gersh from the Casimir mechanism and he travels through a rift in space and time. Richtofen also picks up his journal again and starts to really craft his plan.
He's gonna need the real device he got and the focusing stone back from the Himalayas. The focusing stone is just a really supercharged rock you found back there. Before Gersh leaves, he opens a rift for the gang to continue their journey. Whoosh. They are teleported to a dark room. Knock knock, is this a metal door? The gang is trapped in here. Thankfully, there's actually people outside who can help them out. The famous movie stars Michael Rooker, Robert Englund, Danny Trejo, and Sarah Michelle Gellar. You see, the gang was teleported all the way to 2011, where George Romero, the guy who made Night of the Living Dead, was doing research for a new zombie movie, and he found Group 935's old documents, specifically the ones that are regarding the Siberian facility. So he decides to shoot a movie on location there, which it was actually fine until Richtofen and them showed up. Samantha starts to attack and the movie production has to defend themselves, which is just unlucky.
This is called Dead.
Ah! I'm blind! I'm blind! In my eyes! Holy shitballs. Me too. What did you do, Richtofen?
I did nothing. There's a light switch. Oh, I think I found a lever. Perhaps this will turn on the light.
Oh! Ah! Let go! That's not a lever! Richtofen!
George Romero turns into this really strong zombie and follows them around. But the actors eventually find the room where the gang is at, and Richtofen asks them to help his group get out of there.
Also, he asked them if they could grab the real device that he left there.
So the actors get to work and even grab Nikolai some vodka. They power up the door and Ricky leaves them with a Wonderwaff, and they are sent off on their next journey. It's stated that the whole production staff goes missing, so it's presumed that everyone died. Sorry if you liked Merle, he has the same fate in this universe too. The gang is sent back in time to 1956, where they end up in the jungle that Richtofen was sent to when he got teleported from the moon. This is Shangri-La.
That's okay. Buy me dinner next time.
Richtofen comes here to collect the focusing stone, but we also have some company. There are two explorers named Brock and Gary. They are here because Brock is looking for a place called Agartha, and he believes that he can reach it here. He messes with some stone buttons and casts them both into a never-ending eclipse where they're stuck in a cycle that they will die over and over again. The gang actually helps them go through their cycle, but again, it never ends, so they're just trapped like that for eternity. But Ricky gets his focusing stone in the end, so everything is great and grand. There's also George Romero's assistant, Sally, that gets caught in the loop, but that's revealed in a later game, and it's only there to confirm that the Call of the Dead crew died. They went missing, my bad. And that Brock and Gary are still in the time loop, games ahead. The gang gets ready to teleport away, but then Dempsey shoots the shrink ray.
That's the wonder weapon for this map.
While they're teleporting again. This takes them to the Pentagon and back in 1963. This is classified.
Into the bright
tasty, 'cause...
Just to break from the script, this map came out in this game, and it's a remake of another map, but it's got very important lore. Richtofen decides to make most of this detour and thinks of his next move. You see, back before Richtofen teleported Maxis and Samantha, part of the plan was to create an agreement between both the Americans and Soviets to split Group 935's research evenly, and he also told them that they had a base on the moon, and whoever got to the moon first would have the whole base to themselves. There were also some other prerequisites. He asked the Americans to take some of the 935 scientists and their families to grant them safe passage into the country, a la Operation Paperclip, as well as some other strange personal requests. Richtofen asked for his portrait to be hung up in the Pentagon, Oppenheimer's chalkboard, uncleaned, Truman's hat, Teddy Roosevelt's mustache, a flower garden to be built in front of the Pentagon, a polarization device to be built at a very specific place, wink, a cog made out of titanium made to specific specifications, one American teddy bear, a hot dog, a baseball card signed by Babe Ruth, and 20 American dollars in 110, 15, 4 ones, 2 quarters, 2 dimes, 4 nickels, and 10 pennies. We don't know all the Russian requests because we don't get that letter, but we get one from the Americans finding out about the letter of their list of demands from Richtofen, and they go as such. A recording of The Rite of Spring by Igor Stravinsky, a cosmonaut spacesuit, a lunar lander to be placed at a certain location. Oh, I see. A miniature replica of the St. Basil's Cathedral, the yolk of a Furberg egg, and a bottle of Stalin's vodka. Now, theoretically, Richtofen has all of these things somewhere, and that's just funny to fucking think of. But since the split of Group 935, Dr. Schuster actually survived the attack at Griffith Station and is now working with the Americans. He's always worked on teleportation experiments, but they actually want him to work on the undead experiments. He tells them about his trauma and what exactly happened in Griffith Station, but everyone who listens, including the Department of Defense, laughs at him. Major Sawyer, kind of like his boss, sees some sort of advantage in this and orders him to work on teleportation. Schuster establishes a connection between the Pentagon and Groom Lake, which is an area near Area 51 in Nevada. Alright, this is great, but are you almost done with the coordinates to the moon? Well, those are going to take some time. I'm not trying to mess it up because there are horrible consequences like time travel, but you did it already. Yes, but all this stuff isn't my equipment. And I also had 2 years to work on the secure connection. You keep trying to rush everything. Whatever, bro, you have 2 weeks. Now, he actually does end up making a connection to the moon, but because it's so rushed, every test that he has done ends up a failure because of the time travel thing. Now, remember the OSS handler for Peter McCain? Cornelius Purnell has become the station chief of the CIA at Groom Lake, and he is the one who provides the government with 115 in the US because of his large supply there. One thing's always damaging his mind though. He actually always feels guilt for sending people on suicide missions, but it gives him the motivation to create an organization that will use 115 to improve the human condition.
Hey, I think I've seen this before.
Purnell makes multiple attempts to put his idea in motion, but it's always shut down every time by the DoD. All the exposure to 115 doesn't help either. If anything, it makes him less sensible. But suddenly, he gets a report about a zombie attack at a theater in Berlin, and his eyes open wide. This is his moment. He recalls the stories told by Schuster and has his agents do research into the other attacks across the world. He gets all this information down and makes a convincing report with tons of evidence that concludes that Samantha is in fact a real entity and a high-level threat to Homeland Security. His solution? Well, the government should just let him make his organization that he's been trying to for years. And it's called Broken Arrow. Psst. It's called Broken Arrow because of the guilt he felt. The arrows were the people that he sent on the mission, so he's like trying to fix the broken arrows. You get what I'm saying? The Department of Defense and Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara sanctions his organization. McNamara gets prepared to show the report and discuss it with President John F. Kennedy, Prime Minister Fidel Castro of Cuba, and former Vice President Richard Nixon. Nixon's there just because Kennedy invited him. You know, they're like buddies or whatever. Now, in the meantime, from when Purnell was working on the report to when the actual conference is going to happen, Sawyer had Schuster take a break from the teleportation and focus more on the creation of mobilizing zombies. He's not alone, though. A Dr. Lehman helps him with his experiments and actually helps develop a way to make the zombies docile. Thanks to Yena's spying, Lehman was able to read and study Richtofen's diary. Yena sent copies of it over to America. Lehman creates a gas from 115 to reanimate a subject and keep them subservient. The only problem is that the subject needs to be given the gas while they're still alive. What the fuck, man? Something interesting, though, is that not even a copy of Richtofen's diary is safe from corrupting people. And now Lehman starts to go schizo. Lehman gets in contact with Samantha, and Samantha tells him that he needs to create an army of undead for her.
I will obey you, master.
But he keeps it low-key and continues working on the prototype to show Sawyer. Schuster and Lehman finish it and present it to Sawyer. Wow, guys, that's pretty sick. When will this whole thing be done? Well, we could bang this thing out in about 2 weeks and it'll be ready to go. Oh, that's great. We could just drop the whole thing on Moscow and boom, Cold War over.
But what about the zombie army?
What about it?
We need a zombie army.
Fuck the zombies, this is an
zombie army!
Why are you being cringe, bro? Don't worry, Sawyer, we'll get it done. What the fuck was that, man? Chill out.
Sorry. I guess you just didn't get my memes.
Yeah, sure. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Bye. I'll show them. I'll show them all.
Lehman finishes the project, but then he releases it into the air filtration system in the Pentagon and causes an outbreak. The meeting with the president gets interrupted by zombies, and now Kennedy, McNamara, Nixon, and Castro have to defend themselves against the undead horde. This is 5.
Come on over here. Come on over here. No, you flipped me off. Come on, coward. No. Come on. You're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
Now, technically, this map takes place at the same time as Ascension and right after Classified. You know, time travel nonsense. Oh, hey, it's Yuri. He pops out from the Gersh device, and Samantha sent him here to the Pentagon to stop Richtofen and his gang, but he missed them. They actually teleported to the Groom Lake facility from the Pentagon and took the US's teleporter to the moon. Since Yuri's here, though, might as well troll some political figures. Yuri chases them and steals their guns.
He's the Pentagon thief.
But eventually, JFK and the boys take control back from the zombies and subdue Yuri. Yuri is transferred to a broken air facility for questioning, and the boys continue to do what they did in history. Now, Richtofen and the gang are sent to Griffith Station. This is Moon. The facility is derelict and the power is off. But oh, look at these guys. I forgot to mention it earlier, but when Schuster was testing the teleporter at Groom Lake, he sent a couple of privates to the moon, but they went through time. So yeah, those are those guys. Richtofen's over in the corner looking pretty smug. You see, he's got a plan. They move this bouncing ball called the Vril Sphere and shove it into the MPD. Richtofen then puts the focusing stone inside the Vril device, but he needs more power. So he's got to charge it at his computer. He just puts it in this little attachment right here. But wait, it's not working. It's Maxis. So check this out. When he was teleported to the crazy place, he gained the power to merge with electricity. I mean, look at this place. So when he shot himself after coaxing Samantha, he merged himself with the facility's equipment and essentially became the facility. It's actually not really a problem though. Richtofen just smashes X and then puts Maxis into the recycling bin. Now the real device is fully charged. He inserts it into the MPD and the soul canister comes up. You know, the one from when Schuster killed the rat? Now, one genocide later and the MPD opens up. Samantha is suspended up there in the air and yells at Richtofen. But it's too late! Using the fully powered Vril device, Richtofen swaps bodies with Samantha and now has full control over the zombies. It's a little disturbing because Samantha is now just in Richtofen's body, but... Ring, ring! Maxis is still hanging around, and he asks the gang to help him. So they mess with some computers and...
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Seconds to impact.
Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us.
I demand justice for Richtofen. Everyone says it was his plan to blow up the Earth. Hell, even the game says that. But it was actually Maxis that did it. The gang is left on the moon to fend for themselves, and they fight till the bitter end. Let's hope they make it out of this one. Like I was saying before, the teleporter that they took was never fully calibrated. So when they took it to the moon, it took them to the year 2025. Oh shit. Now, the CIA and the CDC are sent to Nuketown. This is Nuketown. To check out the facility there. Apparently some stuff happened. There's also this random dude hiding in a bunker, but we'll find out about him later. It's actually pretty cool because the events of Moon are happening while you play the Nuketown map. The control of power even switches and the zombies' eye colors change. But eventually... the facility is hit directly by one of those missiles. Now, the world looks like this, and there's zombie outbreaks everywhere, but believe it or not, humanity's still surviving. We get a 10-year time skip, and humanity essentially split into 3 separate factions. Richtofen and Maxis have been stringing the survivors along and having them do their bidding. Maxis communicates with people through radios, TVs, and other types of technology that could send messages, and Richtofen communicates with people telepathically, but only certain people can hear him. Those people ate zombies. The Earth's been going through an apocalypse and food is scarce, so a group formed called The Flesh, whose MO is, they're eating us, so why don't we eat them? But they do what they do to survive. So you got Max's followers and Richtofen's followers. But you also just got people who aren't listening to either and they're just trying to survive. Change scene to 2 people trying to survive at a bus station when they are overrun. Thankfully, a bus shows up and saves the 2 survivors. This is transit. or Green Run if you want to be a cunt. The names of these 4 people are Samuel Stuinger, Abigail Misty Brierton, Marlton Johnson, and a man just known as Russman. Misty is a country girl who's just there. Her dad's a Marine, but it's not Dempsey, damn it. Marlton is a nerdy computer guy, and he's the one who was hiding in the bunker at Nuketown. Russman was a homeless man who had terrible memory loss, but one of the things that he does remember was that he previously worked at Broken Arrow, but was fired and walked the earth. Stuhlinger was a previous member of the Flesh and can hear Richtofen. He doesn't tell the others that he ate zombies, but he does say that he has a brain buddy, and he tells them instructions. This group is known as Victus in the story, and I'll use that term to refer to them. All these maps right here have 2 story Easter eggs, where you either pick Richtofen's side or Max's side. The Maxis ones are canon, so I'll be telling you about that. Canonically, it's because the group doesn't really respect Stuhlinger, and they kind of disregard him. They're currently in Hanford, Washington, and drive away from a Broken Arrow facility. They accidentally release this electric guy called the Avogadro, but it works out because they need him to power up the polarization device built there. Hey, would you look at that? But they power up this polarization device for Maxis, and Richtofen teleports Victus to Shanghai, China, where another Broken Arrow facility is, and another polarization device, or pylon. I'm gonna say pylon because it's easier. Victus actually fucking dies in this cutscene, and Richtofen brings him back to life. I don't know if this is canon, but it's never mentioned again, so whatever, I just thought I'd bring it up. This is Die Rise.
Okay, we all go together or we go one at a time.
Yeah! Parkour! 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 I'm right behind you, Andy! Come on!
Yeah!
They're not here for very long. There's a gun that shoots goo and it's really OP, but then they patched it. But Victus powers up the pylon for Maxis, and I guess Richtofen's pretty upset because they have to travel by foot to Mocomedes, Angola to power up another pylon. When Victus gets there, they arrive at an excavation site, mining 115. But underground, they find an old American western town, previously known as Purgatory Point. This is buried. Also kind of spooky here. There's an old haunted house with these ghosts in there that steal your money, and this big guy named Arthur, trapped in a cell. But he's actually really nice. But wait, why the hell is this place even here? Do y'all remember Jebediah Brown? He used to be a blacksmith in good old Purgatory Point and enjoyed his life being a God-fearing American and living with his lovely mother. He also says dates in a way that I hate.
The year of our Lord, 1885.
Purgatory Point was a mining town in the late 1800s, and they actually were the first to canonically discover element 115, but they just knew it as a blue rock that gave you migraines. One day, a man named Clive Farnsworth went into the mine and came back as a zombie. He ends up killing Jebediah's mom, but he's put down swiftly after. Jebediah buries his mother and goes back home. Later that night, he has a vision where he is visited by 2 angels, and they tell him to build a machine that will upgrade any weapon that you put into it. He says that he can't because it's only 1885 and the machine is extremely advanced. The angels guide Jeb, and he is able to build the Pack-a-Punch machine. Purgatory Point becomes a point of interest as people from all over come to pack their guns. Everything's going great for good old Jeb, and he's visited by the angels again. They tell him that he needs to build another device that they call the Agarthan device. Yeah, so in order to build it, you're gonna need an elemental shard. What is that? You see the blue rocks? You gotta put 4 souls in one of those, and then boom. Well, I don't exactly have a way to take or move a soul. Okay, well, then you could just go ahead and get the blood of an elder god. You just gotta go down to the bottom of the ocean. I couldn't do that. I'd drown. Fucking humans. Well, can you at least make a metal vessel for all that stuff? Yes, I can do that. Thanks, boss. You're a lifesaver. Haha. And he gets to crafting. Jeff finishes the Vril vessel. It's different from the Vril device, but his exposure to the element has been messing with his head. His grief for his mother just takes over him one day, so he goes and digs up her grave, picks up her body, and puts it in the Pack-a-Punch machine. The body just fucking disappears, but when he gets home, he sees his mother's apparition. She's just chilling in the house on the piano. At this point, Purgatory Point isn't doing so well. People are being affected by the 115 and going crazy, and they're just getting murdered. That's when the angels visit Jeb for the last time. They instruct him to put the Vril vessel into the Pat machine, and when he does that, the entire town is teleported to the cave in Angola, and an outbreak happens. Jeb pleads for the angels' help, but they don't answer his call, and he gets killed by the zombies, as well as everyone else who survived the jump. This explains how the Germans recovered the Pack-a-Punch machine from Africa, and how Richthofen got the Vril vessel in the first place. Anyway, back to Victus. They power the pylon for Maxis, and he gets extremely powerful. He takes control over the zombies from Richthofen, and becomes corrupted by the power. He rips Samantha's soul out of Richthofen's body and stuffs Richthofen's soul into a zombie, which he is cursed to walk the earth like that forever. Also, Maxis was promising Victus that he would help them survive, but he didn't care. He now wants to destroy humanity and leaves them to fend for their own. Maxis destroys the world, leaving only Victus left. I wonder if they're gonna pull out of there. But that's strange. We only talked about 4 maps. Isn't there other DLC in the game? Enter Mob of the Dead.
Fine, I guess you are my little pog champ. Come here.
What the fuck?
This story starts in Chicago in the 1920s. The DeLuca crime family is mobbing and shit, but in the most recent years, their cash flow is on the decline. Salvatore DeLuca himself gets peeved by the loss of income and other rival mobs messing with his stuff, and he ends up killing a prostitute out of anger. DeLuca would normally pay off the Chicago police, but they've actually been committing so many crimes recently, trying to get back their notoriety, that the police can no longer turn a blind eye to DeLuca's actions. This one domino causes his whole operation to be investigated. Michael Finn O'Leary, Billy Handsome, Albert Arrington, and Sal himself get arrested. Finn was in charge of running gambling rackets for Sal. He also had a wife named Angela who was an actress that ratted him out to the police while they were investigating the family. Billy was Sal's muscle guy who took care of the dirty work. If there was any issues from the other mobs or someone was a problem for Sal, he would send Billy. He was charged with 116 counts of murder. That's scary. Arlington, or the Weasel is what they called him, was a con man mostly, but he would also pull off heists. He actually got arrested because he failed at robbing a bank. Sal was charged for murdering the hooker and all the other mob stuff, and they were all sent to Alcatraz to serve their sentences. While in prison, Al's cooking up a plan to escape. He starts making plans to build a plane and gets the other 3 mobsters on his side. They stash parts around the prison to prepare for the day, and it's go time. Al starts the plan by faking pain and gets a stomachache or whatever, and kills the guard that comes to check him out. He grabs his keys and unlocks everyone else's cell. He hands them all pistols that he stashed away, but wait, the guard didn't die. So they shoot him. But he still doesn't go down. So they shoot him again. Uh-oh. That's a zombie. They unload on him to finally kill him. But now they have to deal with a whole horde of zombies filling up the prison halls and corridors. Each mobster dies one by one. But they awaken as ephemeral spirits and bring themselves back into their own bodies. What the hell just happened? I guess we'll continue with the plan. And they start collecting the plane parts and take them to the roof. There is also this warden guy that keeps coming back, even though they kill him every other round. They craft the Icarus TM and fly off into the night. It seems hopeful, but it's extremely foggy. Then out of nowhere, it clears up and the Golden Gate Bridge is right there. They're gonna crash! Maybe don't call your fucking plane the Icarus if you don't want something like this to happen. They crash into it, but they survive. Disoriented, but alive. However, the only thing that awaits the mobsters are 4 electric chairs and a sign saying, "No one escapes alive." With nothing else to do, they each take a seat and are electrocuted to death. They then wake up back in the prison and continue to die over and over and over again. What the hell's going on? You see, the mobsters realize that they are stuck in a never-ending cycle, kind of like purgatory. Back in reality, the other 3 mobsters killed Al on New Year's Eve back in 1933 because they became frustrated with this plan and overall found him annoying. The prison faculty discovered Al's body on the roof, and the other 3 were sentenced to death by electric chair later that January. The mobsters are somewhat conscious of their cycle, but it always results in the other guys killing Al and restarting all over again. Now, we're going to go back a little bit more in time to World War I. There's a scientific group called Group 935, and there are 2 important members named Edward Richthofen and Ludwig Maxis. Wait a second, didn't we do this already? Well, you see, this is a different dimension. Specifically, Dimension 63. In this timeline, Group 935 is founded sooner after discovering Element 115 much earlier than in the main dimension. The group finds a journal of a knight named Pablo Marinus, who wrote of a crazy medieval war against terrifying monsters and 4 warriors wielding magical staffs. Based on his writings, he states that this battle took place in northern France, so they excavate the area and find heaps of 115. Also, a monumental shrine made for the 4 warriors. There's also these gateways nearby that are activated with certain songs. Richthofen is visited by another Richthofen after he joins Group 935 and gives him some vials filled with blood and tells him that he's going to need these for later down the line. But we'll get to that when it's important. Since Max has come into contact with 115, he is contacted by Samantha. And why does she sound American?
You can find them! You can get me out! You can open the gateway to Agartha!
Back in the main dimension, she chills out now that she isn't the one directly in control of the zombies. That power corrupts you immensely, and she starts getting the ick from her father. So she reaches out to all the other universes to try to help her get released from Agartha. That's the name of the ephemeral place that she's technically at, because she's physically not on Earth. The Maxis in Dimension 63 is the first one to pick up the phone, and she tells him her plight. Maxis kinda goes crazy because he's hearing voices, and this is one of a daughter that he doesn't even know he has in this universe. He works on a way to help her when suddenly zombies rise up from the ruins and an outbreak happens at the site. Maxis gets infected by the zombies, but Richthofen has a plan to save him. In this dimension, Richthofen sees Maxis as a father figure because Richthofen is an orphan, and when he was going to school, Maxis was essentially his teacher and took him in. Richtofen cuts out his brain and preserves it in a jar, but that's when he's met with Dempsey, Takio, and Nikolai. This is Origins.
At least I'm still in one piece.
It's 1918 and everyone is looking pretty young. Takio and Nikolai are sent there by their respective governments to check out what the weaponry that Group 935 is making. And they also got these giant-ass robots. Takio by the Emperor and Nikolai by the Imperial Russian Army. Although he was exiled because he was a communist. But he's just got that crazy love for Mother Russia. Dempsey's there because his command says that the other nations are sending spies. They send Dempsey there to see what Group 935 is doing. It's got this sick-ass intro with Avenged Sevenfold, and it's really cool, but the group starts to work together against the Horde to survive. This group is called Premise. The gang in the main dimension was known as Ultimus, but I didn't want to reveal that until now, so going forth, I will refer to these names when talking about each group. Premise is not corrupted by 115 and are still sane people with emotions and stuff. Gross. Richtofen gets them to help out with his plan. He builds a machine with Maxis's brain, and now he's a drone. They make some ancient staffs, open portals to the crazy place, and finally release Samantha from Agartha. There's this little rift that opens up and they send Maxis into it, and he and Samantha are taken by an entity known as Dr. Monty. Monty has been there from the start. When Group 935 in the main dimension was doing their teleportation experiments, it opened up dimensional rifts, and it was taken notice by Monty. He gave them little nudges to help them make the Perca-Colas, and he's also responsible for the chalk drawings on the wall, the mystery box, the power-up drops, and later on, the gumball machine. So he's in charge of all the actual gameplay stuff. He also heard Samantha's SOS, and he takes them to a place just known as the House to keep them safe. He gives Maxis back his form and deletes the evil Maxis that controls that destroyed world in the original timeline. Premise is transported to their next location, but Richtofen has a few stops beforehand. First, he travels to the future to collect blood from the mobsters. The blood vials that he gives to his younger selves are from Finn and Sal. He also asks the Illuminati to build a laboratory underneath Alcatraz, because he'll need it for later. Wait, whatever happened to Victus? Wasn't the Earth wiped out? Premise Richtofen and Ultimus Richtofen make a deal to help each other out. Now, what I'm going to explain all happens in the Call of Duty comic. I don't suggest that you read this thing on your own because it's pretty bad and it's ugly, but it's out there if you want to check it out. Victus is surviving and gets chased by zombie Ultimus Richtofen. Stuhlinger asks for help from Richtofen, but his brain buddy is now the Premise Richtofen. Stuhlinger doesn't know that though. Now, each chapter basically goes like this. Oh no, the zombies are coming. Shoot them. This one is weird and it's dodging. It looks like it's commanding the zombies. Oh, hey, we need some help now. Ugh, I'm having memories. We hate you, stupider. Your mind friend needs to hurry. Portal opens, repeat. All you need to know is that Rustman has a memory about one of the Broken Arrow facilities that makes these zombie creatures called bios, and that he survived an outbreak. The facility also has the elemental shard from Siberia, and the memory loss is most likely from the exposure to 115. Richtofen zips them around and takes them to a place called Empty Earth, where there's a facility built here by a Maxis from an unknown universe that collected and replicated many different artifacts from all the other dimensions. Victus is here to pick up a spooky book that's got all information about all things like timelines, dimensions, artifacts, things that hurt us, and it's called the Chronorium. It's actually different for every person who reads it. The zombie Richtofen was tasked to kind of corral Victus into these 4 pods that takes their blood. After they hop in the machines and it takes their blood, Richtofen teleports Victus to a hidden laboratory where they hand over the book, and Richtofen asks them if they want to trust him to keep him alive or if they want to be teleported to wherever they want. They want to talk over it, so Richtofen gives them some time and meets up with zombie Richtofen, and zombie Richtofen hands over the blood that was collected from Victus. Zombie Richtofen then fucks off to wherever he's needed to go, and Richtofen adds the new blood vials to a case holding all the other mobsters' blood vials, and he travels back in time to when he originally joined Group 935 so he could give them the blood vials. So now all that's connected. He returns to Victus, and they decide that they will trust him and they want to continue living. So Richtofen opens a door to reveal 4 cryopods that he will keep them in stasis until they're needed again. He puts them on ice, and now he waits for another visit. But we can't know about that yet, so Shadows of Evil!
I don't have a meme for this one. Somebody just genuinely asked me to play this game on the PS3.
Back to Chicago, during the 1940s now. The streets are still full of scandals, specifically Morgue City. We have 4 people who are a point of interest. Jack Vincent, a police officer who's had a couple crooked dealings with gangs and other criminals to keep their actions quiet. But there's a new mayor in town being brought into the office, and his civic interest is to clean up the streets, and part of that is to crack down on the corruption of the city's police. Jackie starts taking out all the criminals who he has a connection with to cover his tracks, but something that he can't protect himself from is the corruption of his soul. Jessica Rose is an aspiring actress and is willing to do anything to get into the limelight. She sleeps with a film producer, but a little paparazzi takes pictures of those two spending time together. It's not really clear, but it could also just be pictures of them actually having sex, but all it says is that he has photos. And blackmails her. She leaves the photographer a voice message asking to work things out. Hey, you. And they meet up for a little something something. She then starts scissoring the photographer. Wait, hold on, that's not how you do it! Well, I guess she cut out that problem. Oh my god. Ron Perlman. Floyd Campbell is a boxer who hasn't fought in a couple months, and he's given the chance to fight against the reigning champ, Tony King. He promises his promoter that he's gonna win, but how's he gonna make sure of that? He's got an ace up his sleeve. Or glove. He takes brass knuckles under his glove and takes out King. Sadly, King sustains a fatal injury and dies. And lastly, we have Nero Blackstone. He's a professional magician, although he's kind of shit. He comes from a pretty wealthy background, but he also has a wife with refined taste and just loves spending all of his money. Nero ends up getting into so much debt that he has to declare bankruptcy, but he's got a plan to magically conjure some money. He kills his wife for his life insurance. Now these guys are all bad apples, and they end up getting the attention of someone known as the Shadow Man. He hires a reporter under the alias of Mr. Wrapped to do a little piece about life in Morgue City. The reporter states that there's a meteor shower happening and that there's this weird moss and fungi growing, and nobody is even batting an eye at all this stuff. I mean, come on bro, that's like day 1 on O-Block. The Shadow Man then asks the reporter to look into the 4 and report his findings back to him. But he retorts saying, "Hey man, I'm not a private investigator, I'm a reporter. You sure you don't want any more pieces about stuff here like the donuts or the cream pie? How about this?" You know what, that sounds good. And he takes the job. He is paid very handsomely. But now he needs the reporter to track down some very important artifacts. One of those includes a spherical object known as the Summoning Key. It's a MacGuffin that does whatever the plot needs it to, but it's mainly used to interact with souls, collecting or moving them. He follows the Shadow Man's exact directions and finds it, but it's in a container that is magically sealed and it cannot be opened. Dr. Money notices what the reporter's doing and sends him a letter basically saying, "Yo, what's up, bro? You're going to destroy the world if you give it to the guy that's asking for it." Now, he starts freaking out, understandably, but Premise Richtofen shows up and asks for him to hand over the summoning key. The reporter is spooked by Richtofen and tries to attack him with a knife, but he ends up getting stabbed by Richtofen. Self-defense, you know? But it's still sealed in the box, and Richtofen can't take it out and has to leave until it gets opened. The Shadow Man has a plan for that, though. Jessica has a side gig where she dances at a burlesque club, and the other three end up going there for obvious reasons. But now that they're all together, the Shadow Man gives them all BFF tattoos and they knock out. When they wake up, they're attacked by zombies and now have to work together. The mark also allows them to turn into these hentai monsters, and they break the box with the summoning key. The Shadow Man gaslights each of the members to sacrifice someone important to them so that they can break the curse and fight off these creepy guys in hoods called Keepers. Jackie sacrifices his partner who didn't rat him out, even though he thought he did. Jessica sacrifices her talent agent who was going to try to get her on Broadway. Nero sacrifices his lawyer who was trying to help him fight against the identity theft that his wife kept committing. And Floyd sacrifices his promoter. He was just a chill guy who was hyped that he won the fight. They then do this crazy ritual with worms and rain on walls, and the Shadow Man hits them with an oopsie! You guys just opened a rift to allow my buddies to come in and take over. Your dimension's fucked. Well, that wasn't very cash money of him. But what the fuck even is the Shadow Man? For that, we have to go back. Like, way back in time before creation. There was only the Ether and the Keepers. One of them, called the First One, creates the summoning key and uses it to spread life across the universe. Years pass and the Keepers discover something called the Dark Aether. They're like, yo, this thing's pretty cool, but it has a hidden side effect. The Keepers that interacted with the Dark Aether end up being corrupted by it, and it morphs them, making them look gross. One of those Keepers that got corrupted was the Shadow Man, which is why he looks like this. The change was so drastic that they became their own thing called Apothecons. Since becoming Apothecons, they kind of become shitty and start spreading 115 from the Dark Aether to try to corrupt other dimensions, because if 115 is there, the Apothecons can cause havoc and travel there. The rest of the Keepers have had enough, and a huge war breaks out between both of them, and the Keepers end up winning and shove them back into the Dark Aether, trapping them. But not before the Apothecons build the MPD on the moon for later in the main timeline universe. Jump forward to the 1200s where the Apothecons escape and attack Earth. But this Earth is Dimension 63. And it's where another war happens, but with humanity. The Keepers end up helping humanity, and these 4 great warriors show up and definitely turn the tide in battle, allowing for humanity to come out on top. Yay! The battle took place over the dig site that Origins was built on, and good old Pablo and Leroy were there too for some reason. Since then, the Apothecons have been sending out 115 across the many universes, hoping to corrupt another one and take over. This is an edit. The Great War actually happened in multiple dimensions, including the main dimension, which is why the angels asked Jebediah to get the Elder God blood from the ocean, because there was a body there. But Dimension 63 is mentioned specifically because it was recorded by Pablo. All the other dimensions just didn't record it in their history. So that's why all these squid bozos are here. The 4 guys are like, well shit, and try to fix things. So they end up working with the Keepers, who they were fighting at first, to get rid of the Apothecons. They end up shoving the Shadow Man into the summoning key and destroy the giant squid in the sky. We have achieved victory, but there is still more to do. Take this art. Hey guys, sorry I need this for my adventure to Mal, but good luck! Well shit. Since Richtofen takes the summoning key from this dimension, it's actually doomed, because it's a very important piece to the stability of this dimension, and it effectively gets destroyed by the Apothecons and everyone dies. My bad, guys. RIP Dimension 63. Richtofen's been busy, but what are the other guys up to? The 3 are teleported to the moment in the main timeline when Ultimus Richtofen sends Maxis and Samantha through the teleporter. They're trying to get him to wake up the versions of themselves in this universe because they're just chilling here. But Premise Richtofen arrives from his journey and just caps Ultimus Richtofen. So what happens to the rest of history? The other events, the original timeline? Well, believe it or not, the original timeline is just fine, and everything that happened still happens. But now, there are fractures all through space-time, kind of like this. Although the OG timeline is still fine. Now, I'm gonna say my own theory, because it's not officially said why the OG timeline is still unchanged, but I believe that killing Ultimus Richtofen was such a drastic event that the multiverse needed to create fractures in order to keep itself together. Although it's still having trouble, and we'll see that later. But now, this is considered the Deceptio fracture. This is the giant. Primus Richtofen nays over Ultimus Richtofen's body. I wonder if that's important. And rallies Primus together to fight the Horde. Maxis kind of loses their location, so they do the Deriz Easter egg and he could see them again. Group 935 packs up the test subjects and sends Ultimus Dempsey to the Eagle's Nest facility in Austria. Primus takes one of those giant robots and chases them there. This is Dreisendrach. The robot gets blown up and they show up too late because Dempsey's pod has been sent to the moon. Primus Richtofen gets in contact with Groff from this fracture, but he ends up figuring out what he's trying to do. And he thinks he's a spy. So Groff takes actions against Richtofen to try to stop him. They bring the pod back down to Earth, but it has a force field, so they gotta figure out a way to disable it. They resurrect a Keeper and send it to Griffith Station to go fuck things up. However, Groff corrupts the Keeper and sends it back down to Earth.
Technically, he's not the one who corrupted the Keeper. It got inside the pyramid and that's why it got all messed up.
Primus kills the Keeper and sends rockets to the moon and blows it up. I guess the force field is down now, so let's go get the test subject. Richtofen freezes the gang and tells them that they actually need to kill him and collect his soul. That's what we're gonna do from here on out? Perhaps that's something he did back in the Giant. Primus Dempsey says that if anyone's gonna kill him, it's gonna be him. Richtofen obliges, and Dempsey messes with the pod and kills the other Dempsey. Richtofen collects the soul, and now they gotta move on to the next target, Tokyo. But before that, the actual location of Eagle's Nest was built by the Wolf King, who was another person who fought in the Great War against the Apothicons and had Leroy as a servant, and one of the 4 warriors asked him to build it at that exact spot. Now, we move on to the Prodition fracture. In this fracture, Division 9. If you remember, that was the Imperial Japan's group that studied 115, built a facility on Pohnpei Island and kept their Tokyo to do experiments on themselves, instead of sending him to Group 935. This is Zetsubo no Shima.
I'm sorry, I don't speak Japanese.
There's these freaky spiders and plants growing everywhere, even an old head of a keeper that protected the island in the past. Anyway, Primus finds a bunker and they need to access its elevator to a lower level, but the mechanism that controls it is missing parts, so they gotta find a couple cogs. Are those dragon eggs? And they fix it. They take the elevator down and have to fight off a giant Groot. When they defeat it, it's revealed that the Groot was Tokyo, and he explains that Division 9 did awful experiments on him, and it's been a pretty overall bad time.
Your eyes, I recognize them. Almost as though they were my own. Tokyo Musaki, I did not believe I would find you in such a place. I was a warrior. I fought many great battles for the glory of our nation, for the honor of the dying samurai spirit. I was a hero. I share this memory. I have lived many of the same victories. I later learned that my victories were unwelcome. His betrayal was driven by petty jealousy. He knew I could endure anything, that I feared not even my own death. Punishment is one thing. This is cruelty. Who could be so evil as to desire another soul to endure such suffering? Who amongst us could be so dishonorable? Are you so blinded by your own loyalty? The orders came from the Emperor himself. My life, my path, is built upon a lie. This realm may have been corrupted and consumed by evil, but we possess the power to change things. A better tomorrow is only possible if we blow away the ashes of the past. None of us choose the means by which mercy will find us. But I am at peace. I understand what must be done. Will you be my kaishakunin? It is my honor.
Guess it's you next, Nikolai.
Nein. There is something else we must do. There is a chain of events that must be set in motion.
Okay, gotta admit, I didn't see that one coming.
Call it our insurance policy, in case we don't like where we end up.
Now, let me explain a little bit. This broke Takio's entire worldview. One of the reasons Takio was even hanging around Richtofen was because he promised him that he had a message from the Emperor that he wanted to tell him. If you remember the little part at the end about him saying that they gotta go somewhere real quick, they actually do a mini trip to visit the Richtofen that was waiting in the Alcatraz lab. Oh yeah, the secret laboratory with the cryopods was at Alcatraz. He hands the visiting Richtofen the Chronorium and the blood vials and tells him the blood vials are insurance. And they continue on their merry way. Who the hell are these guys in the pods? Come on, we gotta travel to the next map. Let's go. Premise travels to the Argonian fracture now. In this fracture, the Battle of Stalingrad never ended, and it's currently 1945. Group 935 establishes a base there, and they cook up dragons. Like actual fire-breathing dragons. Also, there's these tentacle guys that we don't talk about. This is Gorod Krovi.
Yo, it's huge. Well, it looks huge at least.
Written by many names.
It looks so large.
But I...
What is that? What the hell? Yo, they were riding it. Were they just riding that dragon? Bro, we are watching this again right now.
Premise actually drops in from a rift in the sky and they fall out. There's a dead Peter McCain body that they latch onto and use his parachute. They land close to Ultimus Nikolai in a mech fighting off the dragon. He just sees people and starts shooting. But the dragon picks him up and yeets his ass into a building. Nikolai's mech is disabled and he asks Premise to fetch him a new power core, and Richtofen decides that it would be in their best interest to help him out, just for now. They actually bump into Sophia? Hey girl, your work husband's kind of a dickhead. How have you been?
I'm a machine now. I need you guys to help me gain Group 935 self-knowledge, and I'll help you find a power core, or whatever.
Works for us.
So Premise goes and gathers these things called code units. They ride on a couple of dragons, tame a baby dragon, open these Groff modules, and even locate Gersh, who is a floating yellow ball now. I hope he's doing fine. I mean, in that form, he could probably help us out. Oh. After she gets all the info here, she says,
Here, Bozo, the power core was right here the whole time.
And just swee out of here. Premise brings the power core to Nikolai and we kill the dragon together. Hooray! We asked Nikolai to chill and give himself up, but
A true Russian never surrenders.
Now we gotta fight the mech. There's the Soviet anthem playing in the background and explosions everywhere, and this fight is really bullshit sometimes, but we finally take him down. Premise Nikolai talks to Ultimus Nikolai and admonishes him. It's revealed that Nikolai started drinking because his wife was killed in a bombing raid. Wait, which wife? I thought he had like 20. Turns out, none of these were real. He only had one, which he loved dearly. Wait, so my favorite character is funny because of depression? Oh my god. They kill this Nikolai and capture the final soul. Richtofen then sends the souls off to the house, where they are made pure again and turned into children. Wait, I didn't see Richtofen's soul come out. What the fuck? Well, Richtofen's soul actually is already there. This is a cutscene that plays after you finish the origin Easter egg. What you're seeing technically happens later during the whole soul collection process. You see, there's a young Samantha and a young Richtofen, who we'll call Eddie. After Richtofen took the summoning key, he took a trip down to dimension 2210, where he finds a young child version of himself. Premise Richtofen convinces the young boy version to follow him, and Richtofen kills his boy self and takes his soul. Richtofen has a lot of guilt about this, but this was the best version of him to take because it was an innocent soul. All the other Richtofens are fucked up and stuff. This is why Premise Richtofen looks so pissed when he arrives at Duriz. You see, Richtofen's just trying to correct the universe, which is why he's helping Dr. Monty. Premise then travels to the house and meets up with Maxis and Monty. The other three are also there, and they look at their kid versions and are kind of weirded out by it. But everything looks fine. Nothing bad can ever happen now. There's no zombies, the house is nice and chill. Maxis releases the Shadow Man. The Shadow Man was still in the summoning key. He lured Maxis to release him because technically he's a soulless being and he can be easily manipulated. Remember, the only thing that they sent to Monty was his brain. So now the Shadow Man pops out and fucking destroys Agartha. Now, Premise has to stop the Shadow Man from doing more. This is Revelations.
No way his ass looks like that, like normal. Alright! Oh, guys, I found Pack-a-Punch! Pack-a-Punch! Oh, what the fuck?
This map is actually all the other maps jumbled together in one giant map, and I think it's pretty cool. But the lore reason why is Monty is trying to keep the dimensions stable, but it's really hard for him. They find Sophia's dead-ass human body, and they use that to bring the machine version of her to where they're at. They bring Sophia here, get the summoning key, and fight the Shadow Man. The Shadow Man gets defeated, and Sophia and Maxis join together and fix everything back to the way it was before with the help of the summoning key. They just sort of kamikaze into the void, and boom, everything's normal. Monty's thankful, but he's like, when everything got fixed, you guys should have been faded from existence. Technically, they were also part of the problem, but turns out they were saved by drinking the blood that they had. You see, The blood was from people whose universes were destroyed, and now Premise has consumed it, thus making them paradoxes, and they can exist outside their own timeline. Monty tells them that their existence still allows for his perfect world to be corrupted, and starts wiping them out himself, but Richtofen interjects. He suggests that they should just send him all to somewhere else, and Monty thinks to himself, you know what? Sure, I'm gonna make a place with all the other shit that I don't want here, and you guys can still enjoy your free will and whatever. And sends them off to the Great War against the Apothecans. It's revealed that Premise was the 4 warriors that fought in the Great War, and the entire story is a cycle. Premise fights in the war, dies later from old age. Ultimate's timeline happens. Premise is born again in their timeline and continues to repeat the events that took place for an infinite amount of time. Just over and over and over and over and over and over. Do you remember the mobsters? Well, this time, Al finally breaks the cycle by killing the other 3, and it turns them all into spirits. But Al becomes a bird because he's free. This action causes shockwaves through all the timelines and dimensions and affects Premise's journey. After collecting Takio's soul, their trip to Alcatraz happens a little differently. They arrive in the prison instead of directly in the lab and have to head there on foot. When they arrive, the Richtofen waiting for him is perturbed and says that they're late. He hands them the blood vials and starts panicking. Hey bro, shit's fucked up. Read the Chronorium. Dude, I already read it. Why are you freaking out? Read it again. What the fuck? The Chronorium has changed. The events are different now, and our Richtofen starts to freak out. Zombies start piling in, and now they have to survive here in the prison. This is Blood of the Dead.
Look at this shit. Blue screen, error occurred, Black Ops 4. One of my best games, lost all my XP to this shit. Activision, fix your shitty fucking game.
Remember the warden guy? He also was the warden of Alcatraz. He worshipped the Shadow Man like a god, and was instructed by him to create a pocket dimension here to trap Richtofen in the future. He needed to sacrifice some people, and look what just happened. Sounds like that's some free sacrifices to me. So he was the one who had them sent to death by electric chair. But the Shadow Man also tells the warden that he needs to sacrifice himself as well to torment and torture Richtofen for eternity. He obliges, killing himself also via electric chair. Pretty hardcore. But now he roams the halls as he was instructed to do. So Mob of the Dead wasn't purgatory, it was just a pocket dimension, and they just happened to be trapped there because they were sacrificed to create it. Now Premise does get trapped here for an unknown amount of time because there's multiple deaths of the characters shown in the trailer, but clearly they're alive here, so yeah. When they get to escaping, they help release some souls of those in the prison and reveal that there is a 5th cryopod in the lab next to Victus. They fight and defeat the warden, but not without Richtofen sacrificing himself for the team by getting into a machine that collects his blood. The pod opens to reveal another Richtofen, still in his Great War clothes, who has been in stasis for God knows how long. But he's conscious of the cycle and uses this crystal from the fire staff to wipe out the warden and zombies. It also frees the remaining souls of the prisoners, including Al and the other 3 mobsters. Take a look at this cutscene.
Listen to how the spirits sing. They are free of this realm.
Ain't that swell? Does that mean we win?
I would be greatly relieved if that were so. I am in no hurry to ensnare my mortal soul.
That will not be necessary, Nikolai. The future has changed.
The Chronorium?
Read it. Learn of your true calling. You must keep your soul. It will be needed to defeat Dr. Monty. Who?
Hello? Hello? I am still here. Faith!
My God. What have I done?
I honestly thought you were going to let me bleed to death. It was so sad.
The cycle is broken, Herr Doctor. As such, insurance policies are no longer needed. I wish I could tell you I was sorry, Edward. But I'm not.
No. No, you can help me. You're a doctor. Wait. Don't you know who I am? I have been witness to miracles and calamities. Dimensions born and collapse. I walk a path no other can take. No! I want to be me. Someone who did all the hard work. I wanted to keep going. This is me. My slightest heart. You won't even remember.
So let me explain some stuff. This pocket dimension is left empty except for the dead Richthofen that they left behind. The Great War Richthofen hands Nikolai the Chronorium because he still has a soul, and he has to now lead the group. They break the vials because they won't need the insurance anymore. Although, to be honest, I think that they should have still kept them. But I know it's to be more dramatic. The scene is pretty sad, and I understand how someone could get emotional. Hell, I get teary-eyed every time I watch the trailer for this map because I've invested so many years into this series, and it really does mean something to me. But anyway, let's catch up with Ultimus. Last time we saw them, they were still on the moon. Eventually they knocked out, but they were all teleported to Groom Lake on accident back when Schuster was still working on the American teleporter. The Americans recovered them, and Purnell recognizes Dempsey and Richthofen. They eventually wake up, but Richthofen is still comatose. This is because Samantha's soul was in Richthofen's body, so when Maxis yoinked her at the end of Buried, it left the body like that with no soul. But one day Richtofen's zombie from the comics appears and touches the body, bringing his soul back, and he wakes up. The zombie body just disintegrates, so don't worry about that. The others are like, what the fuck just happened? But that's when Premise appears out of some portals, and Nikolai asks for their help with fighting against Dr. Monty. They agree, mostly because they got nothing else going on. Even Ultimus Richthofen surprisingly joins up. Nikolai takes them to Camp Edward, a Broken Arrow facility that hasn't been used in a while, but they need to pick up broken pieces of the elemental shard. This is Alpha Omega.
Never gonna be a real werewolf, dude. Get out! Yeah, dude.
People don't like this map, but it's got some pretty cool lore bits. If you recognize this layout, you'll notice that yes, this is Nuketown. Broken Arrow created this facility to make robots. After Ultimus Richthofen left the Siberian facility, the elemental shard was shipped to Division 9. After the Japanese surrendered, the Americans recovered the elemental shard and it was sent to Purnell to study in Broken Arrow. The robots called ADAM units worked fine, but they needed to be charged and it took a lot of power. The scientists there at Camp Edward learned that the elemental shard had an unlimited source of energy because it just kept charging itself. So they ended up using it to charge the ADAM units. However, they were acting like they were alive. The elemental shard actually gave the ADAM sentience, but the US wanted them to be used for soldiers, and just like any other thing, they feared their own safety and they didn't want to die. So the project was put on hold, and Broken Arrow used them to keep maintenance of the grounds and the facility. Broken Arrow also constructed their own pyramid device, or the APD. The American Pyramid Device, based on the notes and analysis that Group 935 had on the MPD, but they couldn't power it up. Seems like they still need life energy to power it. That's when a scientist named Dr. Hale discovered that an 80 AM unit broke down near the APD and it sucked up its soul, and it powered it up. And she tells Purnell. Purnell was just gonna sacrifice people, so it's probably a good thing that they found this out. Although it still sucks for the robots. And they start powering it up with more 80 AM units. The APD can do things with people's minds, like see into their consciousness and can plant memories. They use this for interrogation. Speaking of which, Yuri has been sent from the Pentagon and is interrogated by Purnell. Purnell is corrupted by his exposure to 115, so he is also trying to find out how to enter Agartha. He questions him how he got there and what's Samantha's deal and how he can get to Agartha. She just sends me wherever she needs me. Fuck you, you will never make it to Agartha. Yuri is hooked up to an electric chair so that way he's tortured during the interrogation. And he dies because Purnell just fucking shocks the shit out of him. They do some more tests on the elemental shard, and Purnell wants to see if it could bring someone back from the dead. So he asks Paxton Ridge if he could go collect Peter McCain's body, so he could test it out with his experiment. Ridge finds his corpse and brings it to Purnell, where he uses the elemental shard to bring Peter back to life. After a few days, he recovers 100% and is incredibly thankful to Purnell for bringing him back from the dead. Purnell makes Peter swear his loyalty to him and Broken Arrow over everything, which he actually agrees, but it gets challenged later on. The Department of Defense asks for the elemental shard to be given back to them, but Purnell breaks a piece of it to keep to himself and sends the rest to the DoD. Purnell continues to use his piece of the elemental shard in his experiments on how he could enter Agartha, with the help of Dr. Hale, which he gaslights because he knows that she has a little crush on him. These experiments consist of Purnell entering the APD and being zapped with energy from the elemental shard. Peter is thinking to himself that Purnell is becoming more and more of a prick, and that he's losing himself to the 115 delusions. So he tells the Department of Defense what he's been up to, and they need to check him out. Purnell finds out about this and holds Peter prisoner inside solitary confinement. The DoD shows up with Sawyer and interrupts during one of his experiments and shuts down the APD. However, this changes Purnell's form and he emerges from the APD as a being of pure electricity and calls himself the Avogadro. Hey, we know that thing. Purnell, or the Avogadro, kills every person that was at the base, but they still manage to trap him inside the APD. Until the whole gang shows up in 2025 and they start looking for the elemental shard piece. They turn on the base and wake up an old AI that ran everything there, named Rushmore. Rushmore has the personality of a full-bred, proud American, but one from the 60s or 70s, so let's be thankful that Rushman or Misty didn't activate this thing. He still doesn't like Nikolai because he's a communist, but he decides to help out Premise and Ultimus in exchange for giving him access to all the classified information that Broken Arrow kept from him. So we're doing this again, huh? Also, Marlton is here hiding in the bunker. He was reading online forums where there was disclosed documents about the 80 AM units and he wanted to investigate them himself. Marlton is a 4chan doomer confirmed. Anyway, the gang grants access to Rushmore and bring back Peter McCain, putting his soul in one of the 80 AM units. His soul was still lingering around the grounds because of the circumstances of how he was brought back to life in the first place. We turn him into a magical ball like Gersh and he grants us access to the APD. Peter just swoosh out of here too. They open the APD trying to get the elemental shard, but are jump scared by the Avogadro, and a nuke goes off to try to kill him, but it does nothing. The gang fights him, pushing him back into the APD, and Rushmore sends him off to another Broken Arrow facility at Hanford. Oh, that's why he's there.
They finally retrieve the shard, but what's this? A call for Maxis? Guys, bad news. Monty knows what you're doing.
Monty realizes this because the cycle is going differently, and now he's coming after the gang.
Maxis is able to get Samantha and Eddie into a teleporter and sends them to the rest of the group. but he gets chomped by Monty. If you were wondering why Monty's was so powerful, it's because he was a keeper. Dun dun dun! Although we already knew that. After witnessing her father die in front of her, Samantha awakens her powers again. And she swears that she's gonna go back there and kill Monty. But the guys get out of there and head to safety in the forest. The forest that's the zombies menu in Black Ops 3. Turns out it's an actual place, but it doesn't have a name. It's just a place in between space. The CIA and the CDC show up because it seems like an outbreak just happened there and a nuke went off.
It's all coming together.
Nikolai actually tells the whole gang to drink and celebrate before their final battle. Sounds like it's gonna be a spectacle. It becomes late, and the rest of the gang knock out, except for Ultimus Richtofen and Premise Nikolai. But Richtofen is a zombie Richtofen. He wakes up Victus from their pods and sends them to the Siberian facility to do a final task for them. They need to create the Agarthan device and send it to Nikolai. This is Tagder Toten. What? Victus discovers that Pablo Marinus has been alive this whole time and has just been chilling there. He's tried to leave, but he's stuck in another pocket dimension. He actually got in contact with the Ascension group where he asked them to collect some Apothecant blood and give it to him. He gave them the coordinates and they pick it up. However, instead of delivering it to Pablo, Harvey Yena showed it to Gersh, and Gersh suggested they keep it to themselves and experiment with it. They realize that the blood is sentient and it moves around on its own. It does this by moving through negative space, which Yuri reverse engineers to create the Gersh device, and the reason why the monkeys don't get killed by it. They injected the monkeys with blood to help them survive spaceflight. It just made them aggressive. After Gersh disappears, Yena decides that he was going to deliver the blood back to Pablo, but also go back to America with some as well. However, during the journey, the blood breaks its containment and breaks the ship. That's why there's a huge tanker washed up next to the lighthouse. This map also clears up some things in the story that weren't originally there. Like, this is where we actually get the whole backstory behind Jebediah Brown and the Pack Punch machine, some more excerpts from Richtofen's time, and some campfire stories that the gang celebrates and they're talking to each other while they're drinking. The angels that met with Jebediah Brown were actually keepers, and the reporter back from Shadows of Evil had multiple versions, and this version from the original timeline was sent here to pick up the real vessel, but he was actually captured and killed by Ultimus Richtofen. When Richtofen made the elemental shard, the four souls were now destined to be tied together in every universe. That's how Premise exists. Victus collects the Apothecant blood, the Vril vessel, and completes the elemental shard. Nikolai teleported it here behind a metal door. They give all of those things to Pablo, and he creates the Agarthan device. He instructs Victus to pack-a-punch the device, and they do that 5 times, with the final time creating a fiery wasteland, with only a barrier being emitted by the device protecting Victus from the outside. It takes them around the map, collecting zombie souls until it's fully powered up. They send it to Pablo, and he uses it to travel back to the Great War so he could fulfill his duty in the battle. He zips out of here and returns the Agarthan device. Victus gives the Agarthan device to Nikolai, and he uses it to wipe out the multiverse. Victus gets swallowed by the Darth Aether as well as everything else in existence, and resets everything to a place without corruption. You see, Premise Nikolai's realized after reading the Chronorium that they were the reason why the universe was corrupted, and that they never win in the end. He poisoned the drinks of everyone that was drinking, and they all died. That's why Ultimus Richtofen reverted back to his zombie form. Nikolai shoots and kills him, and then opens the way for Eddie and Samantha to safely arrive into a new world. Before they leave, Nikolai asks Samantha to kill him. A shot rings out, and the two kids travel to the new world in a tunnel of light. This is the end of the Aether story. What happened to the huge battle that was promised? It was probably due to how Black Ops 4 turned out in general. It wasn't received very well, and despite having 8 zombie maps, we only talked about 4. The other 4 are part of the Chaos story, which was left on a cliffhanger because they cancelled it. Some of the maps are cool. They put a lot of resources into those, and the Aether probably just got the scraps of the budget. BO4 also had Blackout mode, which was COD's first battle royale, and was added last minute after the success of Fortnite. Honestly, this mode's fun, and the devs still put a lot of care into it, even allowing us to unlock characters from the series with little missions that we could do during the game. Come on, Warzone, why can't you be cool like them? Now I gotta pay 20 bucks for a Nicki Minaj skin. The zombies in Cold War and After are part of the Dark Aether story. I don't know much about those because I quit COD for a bit, but if you want to see a video on that, let me know in the comments and I'll do some research about it. What I will confirm is I'll be making a video of how I wish Black Ops 4 was, so stay tuned for that. Overall, Zombies is fun. It's still my favorite game mode, it means a lot to me, and I will continue to keep playing it, especially with all the custom maps on Black Ops 3. Now, let's just hope that Black Ops 6 is pretty good. I appreciate your time for sticking around, and I hope you leave a like and subscribe for more in the future. Link in the description for my other links like Twitch and my band's YouTube, which I would love if you check them out. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I could do a follow-up thing talking about the questions and answering them. Anyway, thank you one more time, and have a wonderful day. Peace.